Not that there's anything dramatic to have to, like, action. I'll just get in a little bit. There, I'm happy with that. How's your day been anyway?
It's actually been a very good day.
Yeah?
Yeah. Sometimes, like with the Monday, if one or two things don't go to plan, then it kind of snowballs.
And fucks the rest of your day.
Oh, the rest of the week, you're like, oh, God. If Monday gets off to a bad start, it's kind of like a very long week. So far, it's been a pretty good one. Got a fair bit of work to do tonight, but all good things.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. If you've got work to do, I know what it's like when you...
It's quite all right.
People say if you hate Mondays, you hate 1/7 of your entire life. So, you cannot pick out a day. But...
no, if I'm busy, then presently it's for good reasons.
That's good.
And especially in the current climate, I should never be caught knocking that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you do hear me, then you can remind me I said that. But they're all good problems.
That's good problems to have. Yeah, good problems to have in business. That's
definitely.
Problem. Yeah. So, welcome everyone. I'm here with Jack of Spartan. Jack Lovett is a 2-time British national strongman, natural strongman champion, and competed on the world stage also. He's the owner of Spartan Performance, what I would say is one of the best facilities in the country, if not Europe, if not the world. And Jack has consistently bred high-level competitors and athletes under his own tuition and under the tuition of your staff. I think that's fair to say. But Jack also develops programs for people both offline and online. I believe so. Yep. And also Jack develops seminars and offers consultancy services for other fitness professionals that are looking to start up or that are starting to maybe develop further their own businesses. Would you say that's a fair assessment of your business, Jack? Have I missed anything out?
I would say it's a fair assessment.
Okay.
We've certainly had a lot of success working with athletes of all level, but especially at the professional level. And I'm also lucky enough to have a reasonable amount of success in a consultancy capacity, whether that be for business owners who are wanting to set up a gym similar to mine or just a new gym business, or working in a consultancy capacity for coaches or trainers who want to improve their craft. But I'd argue, that's probably what we're most renowned for. Right. Especially if, out of the local area, for sure. If you follow us in the media or anything else like that, that tends to be what you read. But I'd argue the vast majority of our business, easily 90%, especially over the last 12, 13 years, has been getting equally what I would argue is equally as impressive results, but with, I hate the term, but average Joes. Average James.
I would say I'm an average Joe.
You don't need to be a professional athlete to work at Spartan, to work on or to get success from Spartan programs or anything else like that. So for every UFC fighter that I have, then I've got 100, well, not presently, but we've had hundreds of clients over the years that are, either work 9 to 5, work shifts, they've got careers, They're not going to compete in any sort of athletic endeavor to the professional level, but they still have goals, they still have aspirations, and that's where we do the vast majority of our work, and I would argue many of our successes come there as well. So, by that little bit, I'd say it was a fairly good intro.
Maybe I did lean on the professional aspect too much, but when I'm in the gym, I look around at the walls and I see a lot of successes from people, which is a great accolade. But also, I see those same people on the floor.
Yes.
And they're very much friendly as well. I find it's a very conjovial atmosphere, if that's the right word. I'm a layman in resistance training. I just, I'm an amateur at best, but the people in there that are professionals are very welcoming. Yourself and your staff have always been very welcoming. But I see those successes you're talking about with people. You see ladies or gentlemen or even kids come in, and then you see them 8 months later, and it's nice to see, isn't it?
It's fantastic to see.
Yeah.
But it's also, I think it's crucial that the atmosphere is like that. I like the term community. I think it's very important that we have the community that you just alluded to there. So yes, we can have great success from individuals, teams, whatever they may be. And granted, we've got a fairly exclusive wall, because unless you win, unless you podium at a national championship, you don't get on the wall. So it's not a taking part wall. It's a winner's wall, or at least a podium.
Yes.
wall. And we've got that, and that's up there, not necessarily to impress people, though it does to an extent, but it's to impress upon people, what you can get if you put that hard work
Aspirational.
in. Exactly, yeah, to me, I want to aspire to those that I see on the wall. Excuse me. But it's great, nice pictures on the wall. You must have that atmosphere. You must have that community where everybody's welcome. Basically, what I envisaged Spartan as was a facility, a place, a community of like-minded people.
Good.
Like-minded in terms of they will pursue their goal relentlessly, but with good structure, discipline, determination. But it doesn't really matter what that goal may be. So we could have a UFC fighter in there, we could have a professional this, that, the other, fine. Well, we've got clients presently, they're not as young as 7, we have taken as young as 7 in the past, but we've got 30 and 40-year-olds in the gym, and we've got 82-year-olds in the gym. And we've got all shapes, sizes, demographics, sex. It's irrelevant.
And the equipment reflects that as well, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, because you've got it, there's a bench press, which I'm very fond of, as we've just talked about. But then at the top end is the strongman stuff.
Yes.
So if you want to lift a keg, you can go and lift a keg. But if you want to go and do some dumbbell work, you can go and do some dumbbell work. And, I think, not that the two are mutually exclusive, but I just think, a good range of power racks. I mean, there's so much you can do with a power rack. But
I'll tell you, why do we have the equipment range at Spartan? Why does it look the way it does? Bar the fact that the dominant colour scheme is black. Take a look at me, okay.
Comes in one colour.
Yeah. It's like a Johnny Cash all the way through. But bar that, it's really, really simple. Spartan is business. I'm a businessman. And you're a client of ours. And I appreciate your investment of money. And I want to keep taking money from you. The only way that I'm going to be able to do that, medium and long term, never mind short term, is making sure that I've got the right tool for the right person at the right time. And hence we have such a range of equipment so that we can attend to the type of clientele, we can attend to the highest possible level to the type of clientele that come through the door.
Great.
Yeah. And Spartan isn't a strongman facility. What is it? Is it a powerlifting facility? Is it a fighters facility? I keep mentioning these invisible, non-existent UFC fighters. What is it? All they are, and I'm terrible when I give tours of the gym. It's
right.
I'll talk about it, but I'm like, okay, there's the lumps of metal, and there's the green carpet, the turf. They're just tools. And yes, I'd argue that we have some of the finest tools in the world, if you're an aficionado of gym equipment, but ultimately they're just lumps of metal. It's the application on them, so that comes from the programming, comes from the coaching that we give, but also the community that we touched on before that brings it to life as well.
And I really do enjoy the community. I'm notoriously an antisocial person, but I do like, going in the gym, and, I am standoffish at times with people, but you do get words of encouragement from people when you're doing things, and it's really good. And your community, I think is almost built around this philosophy that you have, which is come home with your shield or on it. I don't want to butcher the Latin of that, so I'll give you a second to do that yourself, but not butcher it. You'll pronounce it perfectly. But it's my understanding, if this is not only your training philosophy, but maybe your life's philosophy. And what I would kind of want to ask is, my understanding of that is you give the maximum amount of effort in everything you do. Fair enough. Do you think that's absolutely necessary in all endeavours? And do you think that's obtainable?
Okay.
Or is it an aspirational thing?
First and foremost, what is this thing? It's ancient Greek, by the way.
Ancient Greek, not Latin, okay.
Aitan, iepitas.
Sorry.
And I remember I was in a classical civilizations class, about 14, 15 years old. I was at the grammar school in Newcastle, learned about the Greeks, and you get Sparta, the ancient Spartans. And basically, it was brought up then, and obviously I've learned and studied it since then, that when the Spartans, the males, would go to war, go to battle, the females, who held a high role within their society, would basically say to them as they left for battle, Aitan iepitas, which literally translates as with it or on it, implying return with your shield, victorious in battle, or on it, having died, given your all to the cause. There was no greater dishonour than returning from battle alive, but without the shield, implying that they'd fled the field of battle.
Gotcha.
So when I first was taught that, it resonated deep inside me. Even at that young age, when I don't think anybody's freely going there looking for inspiration. It's especially at that age with school, it can become a bit of a chore. But as soon as I heard that, it struck a chord within me. And I think that's very much down to my own personality. And obviously you learn a little bit more about it. Then you come across the Battle of Thermopylae. It's been popularised with the film 300.
Yes, which was a graphic novel, first of all.
Yeah,
Frank Miller, the amazing Frank Miller, yep.
Although just for the record, Spartan Performance existed before the film came out.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people in the early days, it's after the film. And I said, well, kind of, but not. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, coming back to it, so I tan Epitaph with her on it, and the whole ethos, the whole warrior ethos, I just fell in love with that. And obviously studied a great deal more A-level, studied at a degree level as well, and it fascinated me. But then, and it didn't dawn on me straight away, but when I got into business, when I had Spartan, I found myself in a unique position at a certain point. Spartan was fairly new, 1 or 2 years. And that's when my competitive strongman career was at the height of its, whatever level of success you want to class it as. So I'd won the Brits twice. I was competing, so I was flying around the world, competing internationally at the World Naturals.
Very good, yeah.
So A level of competition. So I was having to set up a business, set up a gym, try to make it a business, as opposed to just a money drain. Get that to become successful, become a successful athlete, and then it kind of just revisited back down onto it, that phrase. And for me personally, and I feel like I'm drifting off your question here, but I'm going to try and drift back, it is essential for me. But it's the way that I translate it and interpret it for myself. No, I'm not going off to battle, in which case I'm either going to live or die. I'm not going to have to go into hand-to-hand combat. I'm not going to go into mortal combat. I'm privileged enough to be born in the right century, the right decade.
To avoid that with...
1,000%.
Yeah.
So, no, of course, I don't feel like I'm a soldier going off to battle. But I love the fact of giving your absolute everything in the pursuit of a goal. Yeah? So you either return victorious, you either achieve your goal, or you return honest. Now, I don't have to die in the pursuit of a general business goal or anything else like that. But it's a quality that I rarely see across the board. Now, whether that's with clients that work with us or people that I may consult with, or just in general day-to-day life, hard work, long-term hard work, seeing something through. I don't see many people with those qualities.
Would you also say it's important, as they say, to fail fast? So give you maximum effort at something, but then have the thought to think, this isn't working. I've tried my hardest, should I fail now with this, and should I move on to another?
There's nothing wrong with failing. But first you have to try incredibly hard. And my argument would be that it's like, I didn't come up with this, I forget who the quote comes from, but the harder I work, the luckier I get. It tends to be like that.
Yeah.
And that's basically how I translated it to myself. In business, the harder I worked, when I first started out, I went and mentored in the US. The guy called Joe DeFranco. He had a warehouse type facility, was incredibly successful, was already world renowned at the time. And I spent a lot of time with him, numerous visits, and there's various things that stuck with me. But one of the things that struck a chord with me was his advice was that you have to outwork your competition. He wasn't the most academically gifted when it came to, so he didn't go to the most reputable university or college in the US. So there would be other coaches with equal or better knowledge than him. Other coaches with bigger and better facilities bigger facilities, not necessarily better. And those were out of his control. But what was in his control was how hard that he worked, that he hustled. They used the term hustle a lot over in
Yes, yeah.
And it was basically outworking your competition. And again, I can bring that back to me. So if I turn out Epitaph, if I give my all to something, it's very rare that I'm not successful within that. Now, that's me personally, so that's my interpretation of it, despite the fact that I'm totally in love with the romanticized version of 300 ripped bodybuilders tooting off to fight 6 billion Persians, and it's not quite the Hollywood film. But I do like that romantic, that warrior ideal. But in my own personal life, in my professional life, in my athletic endeavours, the harder I work, the better my results seem to come. So for me, the I-10 test is massive, and it's tattooed down my spine. It's the motto of the gym. It's on the gym's clothing, etc., and that's something there. Is it attainable?
So your average, I don't mean to be disparaging here at all, house husband, housewife, you know, in their line of work, or in, you know, so I've had scaffolding put up today. The gentleman, the very, you know, I couldn't ever do that, but the gentleman were doing that. You know, my belief is, I'm very similar to you, that if I'm going to be a scaffolder, I'm going to put up the best bloody scaffold in the world, you know. But there is a motivational aspect as well. You know, to be able to give your maximum, you've got to be passionate about what you do. So how do we cross the line to kind of...
Well, it depends. It depends. Yes, it's nice to be passionate about certain things, but other things just need to be done.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
100%.
I'm not passionate about paying my mortgage. Right. I'm not passionate. Right? I'm not.
Yeah.
Right. But the bills have to be paid. I am far from passionate about paying the rent on the facility that we have.
Yeah.
Right. Or the business rates. That is not a passion of mine. Right. But they have to be paid.
Necessity. Yeah.
Necessity comes into play there.
Yeah.
So with some things, and I can go right across the spectrum of life, some things for me, and I'll admit this is, you have to understand my personality, I'm a very black and white character. I do see things fairly simply, or I break them down fairly simply. But some things just have to be done. Right? There's just some ways you have to behave, and some things have to be done. In which case, I stand a far better chance of getting those things done that have to be done if I was to give my all to it. So in the case of the mortgage, etc., well, then I have to put into business. You know, the more successful I want to become, the harder that I have to work. It doesn't have to be obtainable. Nobody has to literally push themselves to the point of death. That would be interpreting it and taking it too far. But I've met very few people, or even heard of very few people, that I would say are maximizing their potential or maximizing their work ethic. Like you said, you would never be a great scaffolder. But necessity dictated it, and for whatever reason, that's your ability to put up scaffolding and run a scaffolding business, to put food on the table for your family, for the kids. Would you find a way?
I would. I think sociologists or social geography, I think it's Boiserop's theory, necessity breeds invention, you know, and you know, that's got the human race through a lot of things. And you're right, if I absolutely had to do something of that ilk, I'd certainly would put my maximum effort into it, probably without passion. But maybe the passion would come from the drive to, like you say, pay the mortgage, to put food on the table.
Of course. And I can understand that's a bigger motivational factor for other people.
Yeah.
Some things just require hard work.
Yeah.
And it's just a quality that I see lacking. And obviously, I'm also biased because look at my environment. I've spent the majority of the last 12, 13 years inside Spartan Performance, training clients. And what do? It's not magic. We're not reinventing the wheel here. It's not some sort of high science or anything else like that. It really isn't. Some people might pretend it. Influencers, you see all that fucking nonsense. They've got the secret. There is no secret. Really, really simple.
10 life hacks.
Hard work.
Yeah.
Consistent hard work.
But people want a short fix though, don't they? They don't want to do...
Everyone's a quick fix.
Yeah.
You know, we're in the world with a quick fix, the 5-minute abs, the 2 minutes this and things like that. And granted, some things can be achieved quicker than others. But regardless, if you get to achieve anything, I could argue, say, worth achieving, is going to require some sacrifice in time, effort, dedication. And sometimes it's just about just getting your nose down and doing the work, slogging it out. It doesn't always have to be a slog. It doesn't always have to be something that you don't enjoy. But sometimes you just have, you know, yes, you want about necessity breeds that invention, that creativity. Great, you could have that inspiration. But other times you've just got to get the job done.
Now that's the difference between motivation and determination, I guess. You know, if you're determined to do something, you don't need to be motivated because
we use this in the gym setting an awful lot, and I certainly didn't come up with this. I've obviously read or heard of it from somebody else saying, I've ripped it off them. But you always hear about motivation. There's motivation and discipline. And I did debate getting these two words put up on the gym wall. I honestly did debate it. Motivation is wonderful, but it's fleeting.
Fleeting, yeah.
It's like and I don't really buy into the whole January, everyone, new year, new me, because that's not really how gym memberships work. Or not strictly speaking, but, you know, motivation, I'll join the gym in January, and then by the end of January, motivation is gone. Is it normally dry January or something, or whatever?
Yeah.
Motivation is great, and we will all have it at some point to greater degrees than not for others. But it's the discipline that counts. It's the discipline, because motivation is finite. It does run out. It's kind of like a sparkler, for want of a better analogy. When that sparkler goes out, motivation is going to get you through it. It's the discipline to keep putting in the work, to keep doing the work when motivation isn't there. That's how we achieve those things. You're trying to tell me that, and again, you know, it's probably maybe a poor example because I'm not too well versed on the current activities within the Olympics, but you've got Olympians that have been working for 4 years, if not more so. You're trying to tell me that every single day, every single workout, every single rehab session, technique session within the last 4 years, and especially over the last year and a half, when they didn't know what was going to be happening, they were motivated every single time. You know? Or is it a case of discipline kicking in? So you're right. Motivation, discipline. Motivation's awesome, and part of my job is to help with that motivation to an extent with people. But it doesn't matter who you are, how motivated you are, or how motivating that somebody is around you. You could have David Goggins and C.T. Fletcher in both ears.
He'd motivate me.
But that motivation will peter out at some point, and what is there? Discipline. That's what takes over, and maybe that's when, you know, the whole eye tie and eye test thing comes back to me. It's genuinely served me incredibly well, because I've found, you know what it's like. You've had a hard week, it's a crazy week. Do you really want to be getting that session in on the Saturday? You know, you've got commitments, family things, and all those things, but you've got that goal. What gets you to turn in for that session? To do the things that others won't. And for me, whether it was business, whether it was in sport or whatever, success leaves clues. I'm a big fan. That's guided me an awful lot in my career in business. I mentioned that I went to the US. Why did I go to the US? Why did I go to this individual? It was pretty straightforward. They were doing the things that really inspired me when I saw. And I looked at all those that were doing it, because I didn't actually have a sports science background at university. I came with a different degree. So I also need to get qualified, as well as, you know, train and get big biceps. You've got to have some sort of knowledge behind you. What I do, success leaves clues. I looked at all those people that were achieving and doing the things that I aspire to be able to deliver for clients, and I looked at the one common denominator between them. Because many of them had different backgrounds, but they all, as an example, had an NSCA, National Strength and Conditioning Association, certification, the Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. So they were CSCS certified through the NSCA. And I know it's like a bit of a strange example, but you can translate that across the board. Success leaves clues. And for me, the most successful people that I know also tend to be the hardest workers. I'm not a huge
success leaves clues.
Of course it is. I'm not a huge football fan. But I do love the example, whether it's fair or not, I'm not too sure, of Cristiano Ronaldo and Wayne Rooney, who both were broke into Manchester United roughly the same time, same age. Look what they've done with their gifts. And then there's Ronaldo, like 35, 36, but he's not the top goal scorer at the last, you know.
Well, I don't profess to know anything.
I believe that he's still achieving to the highest possible level, if not the highest level, at an age where, you know, most are retired and gone, you know. And then you look at what he's doing, there's no stone left unturned, whether that's in physical preparation, nutritional preparation. Success leaves clues. And no doubt he's immensely talented, but the most talented people still work the hardest.
So, Jack, you mentioned briefly there about your education, and understand you did, correct me if I'm wrong here, ancient history. Studied ancient history, Latin and Greek. Now, aside from the 300 and the Spartans, is there any other historical figures, you know, maybe Marcus Aurelius or anyone not modern that you would look to, or have looked to their philosophies at all, aside from the ancient Greeks?
Right.
Any
Because the first one would
leaders
have
or
I mean, there's an awful lot to choose from. You mentioned Marcus Aurelius.
yeah,
You could look at anything from ancient Rome, but I was a little bit of a sucker for a gentleman called Pericles.
okay, yeah,
And again, that's ancient Greece, and he was pretty much around at the golden age of Greek democracy, heavily involved in Greek democracy. He was a great public speaker, a great orator. Didn't mind getting his hands into battle either in the Peloponnesian Wars.
you can pick another Greek.
No, because that, to be honest, it's like you could read anything. I mean, I was a massive fan of Homer in the Iliad, which, again, it's not strictly speaking, verbatim history or anything else like that, but, and the writings of Homer, they've got to be there with, I'll consider them one book. I know there's like two parts, the Iliad and the Odyssey, but they're like some of my favourite books.
What about ancient Roman philosophy? I mean, Socrates. Do you take it?
You can't argue with that, especially. It's almost like they had it all boxed off so many years ago,
right? Yeah,
so many centuries ago.
Yeah.
Whether that's from the whole physical side of things, again, I forget who the quote's attributed to. We can edit this in later.
Yeah.
But it's a man's responsibility to optimize their physical culture, to basically become as physical as they possibly can. You've got democracy.
As well as the mind.
Yes,
yes.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
They were doing all those things.
Yeah.
If anything, it's like we're going backwards. It's like we're regressing. I find I'm in a society where too many people take a great deal of pleasure in not knowing the answer to something.
Yes, ignorance. Well, not even. I don't even think ignorance. It's. Do you know what the Dunning-Kruger effect is? So the Dunning-Kruger effect is I know this much about a subject, right? And I think the total sum of all of the information that's in this subject is this big.
Okay.
Therefore, I know 90% of this subject. When really the subject is this big. So I think maybe modern times it's not ignorance, it's just people think they know it all. They don't know what they don't know. Does that make sense? So would you some
do, and it's like weird. I mean, Christ, I'm not that old. So
well, I'm older than you,
and I never tell the truth about my age. So,
so we'll never know.
I think I've been 30.
We'll never know.
30 for 7 years now.
Keep talking now. I'm going to move this light a little bit.
It's quite all right.
Yeah.
It's. I find. I'm almost like I'm stumped for words. I don't want to say like it's an ignorance thing or anything like that. There's just a great deal of people today seem, whether they do or not, maybe a different matter, but seem to me, and bear in mind, again, in our line of work, we do an awful lot of charitable work with a lot of local schools, lot of local youths as well. So I'm well exposed to the 11 to 16-year-old bracket, whether it's through them or whether through the schools, and ask any of them about Winston Churchill. I don't know, I'm a fan of history, not necessarily just because of study. I think it's very important that we know about history. If you don't understand your past, then how can you ever potentially have a better future?
You're doomed to repeat the mistakes.
Well,
yes.
Are we not? Are we not? It's like George Orwell had it again. Yeah. He just wrote the script a good while back. So I don't know. It's maybe I'm getting out of my way a little bit here.
No, that's okay. So, I mean, we touched a little bit about, or you yourself did, about your work in America. I myself spent a little bit of time there as well. And I've worked in a lot of places, but America was unique to me. You mentioned also the hustle.
Yes.
I think that is very uniquely American. I mean, I have seen it in other cultures, but they have a very unique style of hustle. Like, I've got to make $1 out of 25 cents today. That's it, and it's in the music, like hip hop culture. It's in old time jazz, and it very much about making something of yourself. And the old cliche is the American dream. So if you could give us a little background how you got there, but like to America physically, but also what do you think, you've trained with people there, you've trained with people here. What are the differences? What in clientele, I guess?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Well, how did I get there? So at some point I developed this ambition to make a gym, owning a gym, a reality. But I wanted to be more than a gym. So what Spartan Performance is now, I had the idea of that's what I would like. Basically, nowhere in the UK seemed to have what I wanted to do personally, what I wanted to offer. And all of the authorities that I was looking to that were delivering such things that inspired me were US-based coaches. And one that I came across was a guy called Joe DeFranco. He'd put some articles out on an online magazine called T Nation. And there's a couple of his articles that, again, they resonated with me. I'm a big fan of Brooks Kubik and his book Dinosaur Training. Well worth checking out.
Okay.
Basically about physical culture in the 1800s and 1900s, etc., with the old-time strongmen.
Strongmen, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that type of training, lifting kegs, lifting thick axles, sandbags, things like that, that's always appealed to me, and quite possibly why I then pursued strongman as a sport.
Yeah.
But that was like my style of training, what I loved, long before it was ever going to be a profession and long before it was going to be a sport. But ultimately I came across Joe DeFranco, loved the articles that he was putting out there. He was working with predominantly high school, college-based athletes and NFL athletes. The training looked fantastic. The logic that was being relayed in the articles looked pretty awesome. So when it became closer and closer to wanting to actually make a career out of owning my own performance facility, gym or something along those lines, I was following him and many others, closely. But there was an opportunity just came up to go and mentor with him, basically. I think it was either a YouTube video, it might have just been a post on a website.
Right.
So like back in 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
And it was basically to fly out to New Jersey and basically you would live there, for want of a better word.
You'd been to America before?
I'd been incredibly spoiled.
Right,
My grandparents had me all over the world.
Awesome.
And I first went to America in like 88, 89.
Yeah.
And I'd been back 2-3 times per year ever since. So I'd been to America an awful lot, for vacation purposes.
Yeah.
But that was it.
So you had an idea of the culture. You weren't,
absolutely. I loved
you weren't a concert man in New York as the expression.
Not quite, although I did happen, it was in New Jersey where DeFranco was based. In fact, I was only a couple of flights behind Sully, landing on the Hudson.
Okay.
And I'm not a great flyer anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was probably not the best time to be landing in Newark, New Jersey. And I didn't take a coat. Yeah, so that's how world-wise I was. I didn't take a coat in It was January.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the opportunity for a mentorship came up. Basically, I applied, wrote an email. I still have that email to this day. Came back, went through an application process, was accepted, for want of a better word. There was myself and I believe like 5 or 6 other coaches, some from Canada.
What was that moment like when you got the email? Was your mom there? Were you?
I was by myself. Well, actually, I actually had Spartan up and running at the time. It started to run in some capacity. So it was a Sunday and I was working. It was like a Sunday afternoon, evening, I was working. And the email came through from the States. And it was, I won't lie, it was awesome. And I was a huge fan of what he was doing. I don't know how many people applied, although if we have a look at his success now, I can imagine a fair few did apply.
Yeah.
But it was great, because ultimately if you want to, be accepted onto something, and I want to, I don't want to be rejected. Let's put it that way. And I also thought that I was, if not the perfect, but a very good candidate to go out there and make the most of the opportunity.
Good mindset. Yeah.
So flew out there and basically stay there. So you get to the facility first thing in the morning. You can observe what's going on in the facility. It's a private facility. So it's not like a gym with gym memberships. It's a private facility where Joe and his team would basically train clients, and the vast majority of them were either professional athletes, collegiate high school athletes, or in the lower sort of like school ages, all pursuing some form of observe how they're interacting with the clients. Then you can get involved with coaching with the sessions, picking brains of obviously DeFranco, then getting coached off him. So basically I stayed there for a period of time. You're there, you're cleaning the gym and things like that. That wasn't a prerequisite of the mentorship, but ultimately you're just there. Not necessarily to just be a fly on the wall, but you're basically there from morning till night, which is what he was there.
Like a kind of, excuse the expression, but like a dojo sensei arrangement.
Definitely, to me, that's what a mentorship is.
Yeah.
You're going across there, paid some damn good money to get onto it.
Yeah.
And I didn't pay the money to get over there. My grandfather, actually, because I had no money, he helped me get over there in terms of the flight and the accommodation. And that was my first exposure to getting across there. So basically put myself out there applying, getting accepted, and then doing my very best to make the most of the opportunity whilst I was there. So that's how I got there. In terms of the differences, the most stark difference But pretty much what generalization here.
That's fine.
Over there it's can do. Over here it's can't do. Won't do. Right? That's a very broad generalization, so we can go into that in a little bit more depth. When I was at DeFranco's, they were coaching flat out from first thing in the morning to last thing at evening, groups of all ages, etc. The queues of parents coming into reception didn't have a receptionist, and all they did is they came in and opened up the checkbook. Where do I sign? What is it going to take to get my child onto your program so that they can make the NFL, make the NBA, make whatever it was? And these were coming in at 11 and 12 and 13 and 14. The attitudes from the parents towards their children coming into a private strength training facility, they saw the value in that. They saw the value and the importance of not only just physical culture, sound nutritional practices, but strength training to get them or to help them become better athletes. And you know yourself, if you've been in the States, if you go to a high school and then you go and watch a football game and the stadium is more impressive than what St. James's Park used to be.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, the Americans put everything into sport and excellence. And that's right the way through the culture. And I'm not saying that that's every, because you could always go to a fast food shop. Of course, the culture is a lot more diverse than that. But what I was exposed to in New Jersey is very much an